Welcome to this episode of HR and Cocktails. We are welcoming back Laura Donahoe of Elite HR Connections. And if you did not catch her previous episode, I encourage you to review it because it was about performance reviews and what those look like. But today we are going to be talking about loneliness in the workplace. Welcome back, Laura. Thank you for joining me again.
Thank you, Kimberly, for having me.
Of course. So for those that didn't catch your previous episode, tell us a little bit about you and Elite HR Connections.
So I've been in human resources for about 20 years. And in the beginning, I was an HR department of one for most of my career, and it got pretty lonely. So in 2022, we created an organization called Elite HR Connections, which is an online one-stop shop HR community for HR professionals to get the connections that they need, the networking, the recertification credits that they might need, and the tools and templates and resources, and most importantly, that safe space that they can vent to one another, they can share, and connect.
Okay, awesome. And I think that that's something that's very, very needed. Happy that it's in the HR community because even when we are in an organization that's larger, many times the HR department is very small. And even within a small HR department, sometimes it's the HR leader. You're kind of by yourself. So being able to have that community is awesome. But I also think it ties into this topic today about loneliness in the workplace because feeling lonely in the workplace is not just an HR challenge, right?
Absolutely.
It can be a challenge for various individuals in the workplace. So talk to me, because we're in an environment now where we are in a hybrid, remote work environment. So talk to me about how that impacts how people feel, and particularly loneliness and isolation in the workplace.
So there are different types of employees and workers out there, and you need to be mindful from an organization's perspective and a manager's perspective of the type of employees that you're hiring and what their needs are. Some employees are extroverts, and they want that time with others. Other people are introverts, and they enjoy just sitting at their desk doing their work, head down, and being very productive in that manner. You also need to, as a manager, be cognizant of what employees are going through in their lives. So as we learned through the pandemic, that there were a lot of times that people got really lonely because they were sitting in apartments by themselves or homes by themselves, and they didn't have anybody to talk to unless it was on a Zoom call. So spending some time with them and actually building relationships with your employees is critical.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And as leaders and managers and HR professionals, sometimes we have so many priorities, right? And we're focusing on keeping our own head above water. And so we don't always have the opportunity to look around and identify who's struggling. So what advice would you give to those leaders and those managers about how to identify those people?
So that's a great question. And a very easy way to do that or to go about that is to set timeframes for yourself and reminders as a manager or leader that you're going to either stay on a Zoom for 5 minutes afterwards and chat with that employee, or you call them at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, or schedule those touch points with them to make sure. And it doesn't have to be every single day, but I mean, honestly, if you really want a good gauge on how somebody's feeling, the better you get to know them, the better perspective you're going to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can tell you, I work very closely with our VP of operations, and I can tell when she's not having a good day. And I'll just, hey, what's going on? What do you need? And because I know her, I know what will cheer her up, which is usually some type of slightly inappropriate joke, which is we do those things in HR. I'm just going to say. So usually if I send her something, I can tell that she's cheering up. And, I do believe that when you get to have those relationships with people, you can help identify when they're having those challenges and help to identify what might help them with that. As we talk about, loneliness in the workplace and people, having challenges, what role does technology play in that? And how does technology help us to bridge the gap from a communication perspective to help people feel connected?
So you can use technology in many different ways, whether it's just through our virtual meetings that you have, or if you have some type of messaging service channel through like Slack, for example, or Microsoft Teams or one of those. There are different opportunities to just touch base with people throughout the day and just let them know you're thinking of them. Hey, how's this project going? Can I help you in any way? And taking initiative, because there are employees that are out there that don't want to possibly seem weak or don't want to express their feelings. They might not even realize that they're feeling that way. So as a manager, if you're trying to at least get those touch points in and really use technology to communicate with them, that's a great opportunity to learn more about them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that having those platforms where people can feel like they're a part of a team, even though it's remote, is really helpful. I think, for us, we have a team chat where we, chat amongst ourselves occasionally and just make sure that we're good, especially when it was snowing, we were like, look at all the snow at my house, look at all the snow at my house, and just trying to have some level of connection. But it is hard and it is intentional that you really have to be intentional about connecting with people, getting to know people, understanding what resonates with them, and identifying when they are having challenges, because sometimes it is hard. To your point, people may hold things close to the vest. I know that I'm a person that doesn't do a good job of showing vulnerability. And there are times where I'm just floundering, and people who see me wouldn't know because I'm not good at being vulnerable. And there are a lot of people like that. And so I do think that there are opportunities for us to do that, and leveraging technology to at least have those touch points, continue to check in with people can really help them. But we've kind of jumped into this topic and had some conversation. But before we dive a little bit deeper, what drink are you thinking about?
A vanilla Bliss.
A vanilla Bliss. All right, a vanilla Bliss coming up. So, Laura, your drink is the vanilla Bliss, which I've never experienced before. So tell me, what made you choose this?
I'll have to share the crazy story with you. So it was a cold winter night. We didn't feel like going out. And I was like, what do we have in the house? I need something after a hard day's work in HR. So this is what we came up with.
All right. Well, we're going to give it a try. So this one is so straightforward. It is Dr. Pepper and vanilla vodka. So we can make it really easy. So we've already put ice in our glasses. So we're just gonna pour a little bit of Dr. Pepper on each one. If you want to, I'm gonna grab this. So if you want to pour, you can pour. I know, that's the thing with soda. It bubbles. So you have to try to make sure you don't overrun it. I know. I love mini cans because you don't have to waste. I feel so wasteful with full-size cans,
This is perfect.
Yeah. All right. Are we good?
I think so.
All right. Cool. So we have vanilla vodka, and I think we're supposed to measure it. So we will. So we'll just have one part on the big side and pour it in. And I don't have my spoon, but we're just spinning it around, because spinning it around is also very scientific in mixology, and it stirs it. So that definitely works. All right.
It gets the job done.
All right. Cheers. Let's taste it. That's good. I do like this. This is easy.
Quick drink.
Yeah, super easy. Okay, so we have our vanilla Bliss. Cheers again. Yay! This is so tasty. Thank you so much for introducing me to this.
It's such an easy drink after work.
It's super easy. It's like a vanilla Dr. Pepper, but better.
Love it.
All right. So we just talked about technology and how people can be connected. And when we were preparing for this show, you kind of talked about some things that you had learned from a research perspective. So what would you like to share about that?
Yeah. So when I was doing some research on the topic, I came across an item that was kind of astonishing. The United States Surgeon General said that loneliness is just as harmful on an employee or a person as potentially smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's just wild to me. So
it is.
Imagine what it's doing to your body between the stress and the feelings of just sadness sometimes. So it's important for employers to understand that and know and put programs in place that can help facilitate some of that.
Yeah. And that is, 15 cigarettes a day. I've never smoked cigarettes. I'm not going to say what I've smoked, but I don't know how many are in a pack, but I feel like that's more than a pack, right? I don't know. But what I would say is that is very, that's very astonishing that it would have the same impact on a person as smoking about a pack of cigarettes a day, right? So when we think about things that employers can do to help support an employee who's having those types of challenges. So like for me, most of the people who are, working on our team are relatively close. They could come into the office if they wanted to. But there are a lot of organizations that have people very spread out in remote areas, like one person in Oklahoma and one person in Portland. And so what are some things that, my stomach's growling, hopefully you didn't hear that. What are some things that those organizations can do to connect those people? What can they do? Because they can't all be in one office. So What does that look like? What are some things that they can do to help connect those people?
So there's opportunity there. That's actually one of the reasons that we created Elite HR Connections, is to build a community for people. It doesn't necessarily have to be in that specific industry, but build a community within your organization to really give people the opportunity in a safe space to communicate, to chat, to learn about one another. Again, building community is about building relationships. There are other external resources that we can utilize as well. Obviously, EAP's services, and I'm sure there's many more out there. But those types of things, putting certain benefits in place for employees is critical too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I actually interacted with a woman who has this organization called onevillage.io, and it's amazing. It's like an EAP, like on another level, right? Where you employers get access to a platform, they log in, and employees can log in and they can instantly just schedule an appointment directly with the provider in that platform, which is very different than an EAP, because in EAP, you call into the number, they tell you the people, you call the people, you try to see if they have an appointment, they're taking your insurance, it's like all these steps you go through, but literally you log into this platform and you just make an appointment directly. And I can say for myself that I have leveraged this service a couple of times over the last few weeks. And it's very easy. These are legitimate providers and professionals that provide great services. So there are resources out there that are available, not to say that EAPs are not useful, because they absolutely are. But this is also another platform that can allow people to connect directly with someone else. I think also one thing to consider, I know that a lot of organizations who hire people remotely are, like, well, I don't want to have office space. We don't need to have office space. I have one person in Portland. What would you say about the benefit of an employer offering a benefit of using a shared space as part of their benefit? So 2 days a week, you can go into a shared space, and that's a benefit that we offer to you.
That's a great idea, and definitely an option out there these days, because there are a lot of empty office buildings from COVID times that they're creating these shared office spaces. If you need to go work in one or two little office spaces, or sometimes you can even connect with others in the kitchen, like while they're just getting your coffee in the morning. If that's what you need, that might make it better for you. I also know a couple employers have started to bring people together, even though they might be fully remote. They will make sure that they are budgeting to bring everybody together for at least one or possibly two events per year at, say, a baseball field or a large family event, so people can get to know each other's families. So there are ways that employers can start to bring people out of this feeling of loneliness, but it definitely takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll also say is that feelings of loneliness, feelings of other feelings that may come along with that perhaps I can't fully categorize. Some of them might not be things that can be addressed directly from the employer, and the employer needs to be able to identify when someone has a challenge that may require additional support. Now, that's my people hat. My HR hat is do not assert that anybody has a disability, because you do not want to treat them as having such a disability. But what I would say is that we really have to keep our eyes open and think about, what else are we dealing with? Is it just loneliness, or is that how it's displaying and it could be something else?
So one way to try and mitigate that a little bit is through having serious conversations, maybe even training with your managers, because they need to start to, and I'm not saying that they're considered health professionals. Even as an HR professional, we don't wear that hat. But we can at least start to talk about it and start to think about, well, they're exhibiting these signs or symptoms, and again, we're not medical health providers, but we might see some of the triggers or some of the mannerisms or things like that, or maybe they're not joining Zoom calls that they should be, or I don't know. There's a lot that you can pay attention to if you're really paying attention to it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. 100% agree. And I think, trying to find my notes. I think that you're absolutely right. With that, we just have to pay attention. And that's one of the things that I think is important for organizations to understand, is that a manager's job is not just to manage whether or not someone came to work, or whether or not they're meeting performance standards, or whether they're, dressing according to the dress code. But there's a higher level of responsibility that a manager has to really be intuitive and be in tune to what's happening with my team. What's the team dynamic? What are the individual dynamics that I'm seeing, and being able to identify them. And to your point, while HR, we are not healthcare professionals, medical professionals. We cannot diagnose individuals with any type of condition. But what I think we have that managers may not have, and nor do we want to task them with, is the ability to identify how do we provide the best resources to this person. And so what we can do as organizations is help managers to identify, when do you raise your hand and bring it to HR?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me about how an organization's culture can impact how individuals experience the workplace and potentially reduce loneliness.
In a corporate culture can really exemplify what employees need or what they might want out of an organization. It's important for them to provide that information to the employee up front as well. What are your mission? What are your vision? What are your goals for the organization? Because that helps define and build the culture. It also is important for the employer to recognize that not everybody is going through the same life events at the same time. So yes, your culture might be heading in this certain direction, and this employee might be over here just getting the work done, but they're struggling on the inside. So you have to pay attention to the big picture, the corporate culture, but also what individuals are going through.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of times about organizations saying, well, we have a learning culture. We have a culture of accountability. We have an entrepreneurial culture. What about a culture of vulnerability?
Absolutely. It's
right?
important.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's looked at as weakness.
Correct. And so that would be an opportunity for organizations to say, we want you to feel comfortable being vulnerable because our culture is to provide you with what you need to be successful, right?
Yep.
So we've talked about a lot of things today. Is there anything that we haven't talked about?
Just the fact that this can cost employers a lot in productivity. Just make sure employers are doing whatever they can to help give employees what they need to not feel lonely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, thinking about the ROI is really important because this is a time investment. This is potentially a resource investment. But at the end of the day, thinking about the ROI at the end is really what organizations should be thinking about. So thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your insights with us today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of HR and Cocktails, and we'll see you on the next episode.